terrible. Rusty, as you can see, made a video 2 months ago where he ranks every single weapon in the game. Video is just well edited and fun to watch. Although content within the video itself can be questioned. Make long story short, looking at the tier list from the perspective of let's rank the weapons on its own without context doesn't fucking make sense. So as far as I understand, this video made by OnlyWaifu is about that, about tier lists that doesn't make sense, just to spread awareness. But hey, let's watch it.
Let me pose a question to you, my delectable caramel macchiato. What do you believe constitutes the finest weapon in Elden Ring? Think about it for a second. I will wait. Okay, you got your answer. Good. Now, permit me to pose a follow-up inquiry. Best for what purpose, precisely? We've been recently let known about Rusty's weapon ranking video, where he ranks every weapon in Elden Ring, leaving out only the shields, which, despite also being considered weapons, he ranked them in another video, which is funny because he also included torches in the weapon ranking, but I digress. The reason why his list caught our eye was because when giving the slightest amount of scrutiny, well, it makes no sense at all. His supposed criteria for ranking the weapons are all over the place. He claims to consider factors like how fun the moveset animations are, how effective they are, damage, range, consistency, and artistry. Yet,
so okay, like it's fine to make subjective tier list in whatever way you want, but I assume having it in the title that you're ranking the weapons from worst to best suggests that it is some sort of the objective matter, yeah? And honestly, I personally couldn't fucking care less. Just do your tier lists. It's your opinion. Whatever criteria you go with, I think it's fine. It's not that big of the deal. Although I can understand that this type of content can brainwash players a little bit, especially like new ones, yeah?
He also mentions that his video shouldn't be your only source on the topic, implying it should be one of many, but then he claims to strive for objectivity. Quite the jumble of statements there. Let's start with the most extreme example. The very best weapon in the game, according to Rusty, is Vike's War Spear, and he kind of foreshadowed it when he talked about flails.
Situation, and barely any benefit in PvP if I'm being honest, if only because people seem more interested in power stancing Vikes.
Yeah, so let me elaborate real quick. Vikes is dog shit. Here are like 4 things that happened to Vikes across multiple patches in Elden Ring. First, they nerfed power stance status effect. Second, they nerfed passive armor, which changed the way how like overall gameplay being approached. Before, you could just wave dash onto your opponent, get close to them, they would attack you with, for example, power stance straight swords. And then you could trade with them because they are going to hit you first, you're gonna hit them second, but you're hitting them with dual Vikes, you're applying madness, and you have longer stun. Then on top of that, there was a fixed glitch that was related to the fact when he was wave dashing, that is crouching and uncrouching, he was regenerating stamina. And then the last thing is the overall buff to the hyper armors in the patch 1.10 is basically nailed in the coffin because of hyper armor and also mitigations that you receive when you have hyper armor active frames. You ultimately just going to out damage Vikes, yeah.
This was his reasoning.
Number 1, Vike's War Spear. In addition to being the only madness-themed weapon you are ever offered, this spear has the unique benefit of trapping players in a shitty animation for 2 seconds upon being afflicted, and light rollers and bleed queens in PvP can now face the most literal interpretation of dying mad about it. It's a great spear, it has fire damage, it has madness buildup, it's extremely light for no damn reason, it has great scaling at +10, the skill's damage is determined by weapon level, it has a horizontal swipe as a heavy, which gives it utility against crowds, it's an early game obtainable, pretty much every positive bullet point you've heard me list off for all other weapons in the video, this spear has in its pocket.
Toby Hunter, Minneapolis Star. Is this a joke?
Right from the get-go, he states something untrue. The fingerprint shield is also a madness weapon.
I mean, like, argument is kind of missed here because, whereas it's true, he's not considering shields as weapons. Like, that's why he has dedicated video for them.
Which can even be infused to be given an arcane scaling.
But that's true, by the way. Yeah, like it's, basically you can use fingerprint as a weapon, and it's actually hella fucking good under certain circumstances.
And increase its madness buildup. If you infuse it with bleed, you'll have a weapon that inflicts both bleed and madness at the same time.
Yeah, it does.
At insane rates.
It does.
But it's also not the only thing that can inflict crowd control on other players. For example, when talking about PvP as he is now, the Ripple Crescent Halberd is borderline cheating, because when you have 60 arcane and use sleep grease on it, you can sleep people through rolls in 2 to 3 hits. And guess what? It has better range, a better moveset, and a better Ash of War than Vike's War Spear. It's not even the longest Great Spear. Fire damage is
I mean, it's shortest, yeah.
reduced by increasing vigor, so it's not the most damaging.
That one is actually an argument that doesn't make sense in the PvP match, unless you're playing on the low level. The way how resistances work in this game is that the higher damage you deal, the less of the base resistances actually matter, and more of the armor resistances. And at some point of damage threshold, the base resistances basically does nothing.
Either, and its madness buildup is quite low and hard to pull off.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
So it's safe to say that Vike's War Spear is far from being the best weapon in PvP. And if we talk about PvE, I don't think I even have to mention to you why it would suck, do I? Well, in case I do, let me spell it out for you. Madness is useless in PvE because only Tarnished can be inflicted with madness. Every other mob and boss in the game is immune to it. We sincerely cannot understand how he came to the conclusion that this is the best weapon in Elden Ring, because even judging by his weird criteria, it's not even close.
Yep, good old Clean Rot. And it's even like with Bat Infusion here, because like Clean Rot is not that great on Keen or the lightning, yeah.
But that's not the only boo-boo he made with the list, my little raviolis. There are many inconsistencies, and we are not even talking from a very technical point of view, but rather his own criteria. For instance, there is absolutely no reason for Katar to be so low on the list.
It's pronounced Katar? Fuck no, it's Qatar, fuck
And
off.
Cypher Pata to be so high on the list when by default, they are both the same weapon. Both have a similar Ash of War, and both have the same moveset, but according to his own criteria, Qatar would be better because it's longer, can be infused with different Ashes of War, and has the potential to deal more damage.
Oh, lose half my health.
Not to mention that
But it's not, yeah? Like Cypher Pata was listed worse, I think. Sorry, the other way around. Cypher Pata was listed better.
Pata deals
I don't
only
remember
holy
at this
damage,
point.
which can be easily mitigated in PvP, and enemies in the late game are highly resistant to it. There are other strange inconsistencies, such as Blasphemous Blade being worse than the Iron Cleaver.
Fire damage
What?
is nice, yes, we all know this. But that's not taking into account this greatsword's mortal enemy, Rain. Fire damage loses 20% of its punching power when the enemy is either in water or being pissed on by the greater will in the form of precipitation.
Crystal Knife being better than the Great Club, a weapon that also has split elemental damage but can be buffed with grease.
Holy damage gives it a bit more nuance, but the split damage is just gonna make it harder to pierce enemy defenses. But the split damage,
I mean, like, in my opinion, Rusty's video is made with the sole purpose to entertain the audience. They're not supposed to have the factual information in it. I think it's fucking dog shit, and I think it's... Later on, people like me, like G9, and at this point also like OnlyWaifu, and overall channels that are dedicated to more serious like approach to the PvP in the game, have to uncharm the bullshit that these for fun channels actually spread. So it would be nice if this information would be more accurate and coherent and consistent and actually factual, but I understand where the Rusty's video coming from. It's just the reason why a lot of the information in this video is kind of dog shit from fundamentally, let's say it, factual point of view, is because the focus of the video is purely entertainment. It's supposed to be nice to watch, and it is. Rusty's video is great. As you can just put it on the side and have fun listening to the guy and also looking at the video from time to time through the freaking 3 hours.
What damages?
Saint Trina's torch being better than all the weapons below it, or any torch for that matter. The pickaxe being number 20 for some godforsaken reason. Any thrusting sword being outside of S tier, and many, many more things that are just not worth going into right now. But as you can probably see, even by his own far-fetched criteria, the list makes no sense.
Know your place, trash.
Although we could easily guess that he really just scrambled stuff up and only made the effort for F and S tier. I mean, just look at what he says about the Knight's Greatsword, the best PvP greatsword in the game, and a solid choice for PvE.
Number 138 is the Knight's Greatsword. It's like a sword, but greater. Wonder what they call those. B's on quality affinity. Pretty nice.
Doesn't mention the true combo moveset, and a shorter greatsword with a worse moveset is above it. Yup. And before you flood my comments section with the classic, well, it's only his opinion. First off, he made it clear that he aimed to be as objective as possible, so this goes beyond mere opinion.
I mean, like, he uploads something on the internet, yeah? It is a public video, it is absolutely fine to criticize it.
And secondly, sure, he's entitled to his opinion, but that doesn't make it immune to being flat out wrong. Take, for example, the notion that a silverback gorilla could take on a lion. That's a debatable match, sure, but suggesting that a silverback gorilla could square up against a damn elephant, that's just downright absurd. It's a similar situation here. Some weapons are objectively superior.
Okay, listen. Can we do a deep dive on animals tier list? Because I am actually not sure which matchup is bad in such case. Is gorilla the one that is in the advantage, or is the elephant the one that is in the advantage? Like, I would assume we need to ask some sort of the animal world specialist. So here, these kind of looking like PSGS, yeah? It makes sense. It's kind of like PSGS. But gorilla, as we know by looking at PlayStation players, apes love their PSSS. So I would assume this is actually PSSS versus PSGS matchup, which I would say this is a skill matchup, and therefore these are somewhat equal. It's just like matter of the way how you're approaching the matchup and how you actually individually play.
That's just downright absurd. It's a similar situation here. Some weapons are objectively superior to others, no matter how you slice it. The best flail still can't hold a candle to the worst thrusting sword. So while there's room for debate in certain areas, some aspects are just plain objective, regardless of opinion or personal experience. And don't give me that Schrodinger's joke argument either, where the presented product is either legitimate or a work of irony, depending on the viewer's reaction.
Oh, no. It was just...
Yo, this is good.
Just, why did you laugh?
Listen, if you are ever going to hear me doing a shit statement, I was just trolling.
I believe the internet is past that point where you could just state,
It's just a prank, bro.
and get away with any stupid shit you do or say. Oh, you took the tier list that attempts to be objective and try to argue why it's wrong? Well, joke's on you, it wasn't serious. I bet you must feel very silly right now, huh? That being said, we're just left to wonder now, how do you actually rank weapons in Elden Ring? Is it even possible? Well, of course it is. You just need to apply the right criteria. A weapon or a setup may be very good for PvP, but mediocre at best for PvE and vice versa. That's why not specifying the criteria well can tear apart any list easily. So now after
weapons on its own mean nothing.
Long time of being asked to do this, I will do small rankings of the best 5 weapons or setups in Elden Ring for PvP duels and PvE, with the help of Gino Machino for the latter. Melina, care to do the honours?
Oh yeah, sure. Alrighty, let's start with the PvE first. Keep in mind that these were selected by Gino Machino himself, an amazing Elden Ring speedrunner. Number 5, Wing of Estelle. Magic damage is pretty good for PvE, and this little blue paddle offers tons of it, with a small ranged attack. A solid moveset, both one-handed and power-stanced, and an incredibly good Ash of War, which melts groups of mobs and big bosses. Number 4, Starfist. The DPS on these big black pointy balls HD can be quite insane, as well as the poise damage.
This is actually what I'm using myself in the PvE. When I have to play PvE, I just endure and mash, and that's usually the win. Or like click R2. Like R2 deals so much poise damage. You can just straight up destroy the how that's called, posture of your opponent. Yeah, that's fucking great.
And the bleed. It's very good with Ashes of War like Endure, Cragblade or Royal Knight's Resolve. The lack of range, though, can be troublesome for some players. Number 3, Blasphemous Blade, our all-time favourite tampon of doom. Taker's Flame is definitely the best thing about the weapon, as it deals tons of damage and it will heal you on hit and enemy death. The moveset is solid too, and fire damage can be amped with Flame. Grant me strength. Number 2, Bloodhound's Fang. It's all about the Ash of War. Sucks for PvP.
Oh no.
But it's amazing in PvE. The hyper armor, damage, and poise damage of this thing is absolutely bonkers, and the iframes of the second part means that you won't get punished as much for spamming it like a monkey. Plus, you can buff it with grease and regular buffs for more bleed or damage. And the best PvE weapon totally not being held at gunpoint to say this? Number 1. Dark Moon Greatsword, your blue smurf's gift for simping for her till the end.
That's glow stick, bro.
Absolutely insane magic damage and frost proc from afar just by pressing L2 once and then
Yeah, it doesn't take mana when you cast these. It's fucking insane.
mashing R2 as if your life depended on it. It also deals amazing poise damage, so you'll break enemy stance quite easily. Number 5. Off stock. The chase potential and range of halberds combined with the obnoxious glitchy poke of the offhand rapiers. A dex build with the Guardian
It's duels, yeah?
Sword Spear and Clean Rot Night Sword makes this setup incredibly tough to fight. However, it's hard countered by having 109 poise. Number 4. Power Stanced Great Spears. Great range, great piercing damage, big stun lock when hitting the insane crouch attack, which allows you to place your enemy into a 50-50. Either they roll or don't. If you don't roll, you could eat another crouch L1 right away. But if you do roll and your enemy just keeps chasing, you could get brutally roll catched. The start that covers the most angles would be to roll once and jump attack, since this will make the roll catch attempt whiff and leave them open for a jump attack. Despite being overall great, they do require quite a bit of practice to master though. Number 3, Power Stance Straight Swords. A faster version of Power Stance Great Spears. They're mostly a defensive setup, where they shine best at punishing whiff attempts and panic rolls. However, they are so fast and deal so much damage that they outperform Great Spears by a margin. They're also simpler to use, consume much less stamina, and have good chase potential with the jumping L1. They only lack a good running attack, which is the reason why they are not the best setup in the game. Number 2, Clean Rot Night Sword, the undisputed best weapon in the game by itself, and even better than some S-tier setups. This thing is a menace. Insanely fast, very good reach, very good piercing damage, solid chasing, works really well with different Ashes of War and builds.
And what's important, it is actually a very good matchup for the PSSS, yeah? Just you have more options, because PSSS doesn't really have aggressive options.
This thing literally has no weaknesses, but it is only outshined.
It does have certain weakness, and it's actually quite funny. Like, you have certain dynamic between Shamshir and Cleanrot, because in my opinion, Cleanrot is practically better than Shamshir in almost every case, besides the matchup of TS versus Shamshir. It's because Shamshir can utilize the sword dance. Because of that, you have essentially the same frame data. You have ability to outspace the clean rod or strafe it to the sides, and then moveset of the Shamshir makes it easier to hit. And then you can actually utilize your amazing spin on the sword dance for the sake of to completely out-damage clean rod. It's actually pretty good matchup. You have certain nuances in this game of this type that normally, you know, you would rate that certain weapon is worse than the another one, but in the direct matchups against each other, it turns out that like that weapon that normally is worse is actually better in this particular scenario.
By the best setup in Elden Ring for PvP, which is number 1. Power Stance Spears. Give 2 Naginatas to your senile grandpa with dementia, and he will most likely beat 90% of the Elden Ring player base and forget how he did it afterwards. These things are nuts. So much so that they got their own video and short. But to summarize, brutal piercing damage, lightning fast, insane chasing, insane tracking, longest range in the game if used with pikes, can apply bleed if used with Naginatas, and extremely easy to use since you only need to press L1 and stuff dies. Certainly the best setup for PvP in Elden Ring.
On top of that, it's actually blends itself. Like it's hard to tell when the attack coming sometimes, especially if you're just gonna do a simple turnaround.
I'd like to wrap up by emphasising that either Rusty or anyone else can create whatever tier list they fancy. Ultimately, it's just a light-hearted video about a game meant for entertainment, so it's not exactly causing any harm. However, that doesn't mean it's impervious to criticism from those genuinely looking to engage in discussion and rectify any inaccuracies. Shutting down conversation with the usual silly memes doesn't contribute positively in any capacity. It only fosters a frivolous atmosphere of unnecessary censorship, all in the name of defending the honour of the individual dishing out Yaperonian cheese to their audience. But that's going to be it for today. If you want full-fledged tier lists that include all the weapon types and such, let us know. And speaking of weapons, here's Roderica with Mystery Weapon.
Maybe I would consider like this criticism of Rusty's playlist at times like very aggressive. That being said, its criticism is fine. Yeah, the arguments are fine. Meritorically, this video is just right. Although I wonder if form of the delivery that was somewhat rude is not going to be considered by people around us something overwhelming. But, well, we're gonna see.
Hello, gamer. Memories broken, freedom goes unspoken.